So part of that evolution has come into the collective, as it were. And Brett Lauderdale and the guys at GCW and the team, they put together this showcase every so often, and it just blows everything out. They bring all walks of life from independent wrestling via Lucha Libre, the Big Gay Brunch. They bring in Jersey Championship Wrestling, all the different facets of independent wrestling. What's it like being a vital part of the collective and coming in and help planning all of that and being a part of what, Brett and the guys are doing with GCW?
It's definitely taught me as a performer to sort of just say yes and figure it out. It's put me in a lot of positions where you go, okay. I mean, I remember my first GCW appearance ever was in a clusterfuck. I was doing other shows, that New Jersey Mania weekend. It was the only collective show I had. And kind of going in there and seeing like, all right, well, there's sort of a plan, and here's sort of your idea. But there was that level of trust of like, we need this to be a certain level of ridiculous. I'd been to other spring breaks. I kind of had the concept of it. And now to see that expanded to like featuring TJPW doing a show, having DDT return from Japan to do another show, getting to have a match with Pheromones before they broke up with DDT, getting to have, I had crow's nest seats, sadly with Mance Warner, who we are not getting along right now, as you may know, to watch that show from the top after all these other shows had happened, and to get to see that level of Lucha Libre bought in and have a show that's completely dedicated to that. It's marvelous as a performer to get to be a part of all these shows, but it's just like, as a fan, I can't even imagine how great it is, because I'm sitting around going, oh, I'm going to do these shows. I'm going to work. I'm going to be very exhausted. I'm also going to get to watch so much good wrestling, so much diverse wrestling. And there really seems to be this idea of, everything seems to come in with its own, rules and universe, but the collective and the proximity of the collective allows a lot of things to happen that would have never happened in wrestling before. And getting to see that crossover happen and getting to see sort of the communication made, and, everybody just wants to put on a good show, but now we're all together and we can communicate that in our certain way. There's a real magic to, how this kind of comes together and how wild it is. And there's also sort of this mindset of like, we're not really worried about what else is going on. We're going to put on our shows to the best of our ability. We know there's a lot of competition around shows, especially with the Mania shows. It's not for us to worry about, what are the other shows doing? How do we counter program? It's just for us to say, our fans are coming to see these shows. We want this to be the most top-notch wrestling and meet their expectations. If they're coming to see a DDT show, if they're coming to a spring break, we want it to be over the top, wild, crazy, ridiculous. And to have that sort of wild mix of things. I mean, I have no desire to be in Bloodsport, but to have Bloodsport be a part of the collective and see the ring and the room that is going to look wild during a spring break or during a Big Gay Brunch, now have no ropes, seeing a completely different style happen, seeing a very brutal, different wrestling that's just as appreciated. Like, it's beautiful to see that much diverse wrestling live around the same exact space. And the community, I think that it grows with everybody coming together. Fans are coming back, seeing each other year after year. Wrestlers are getting to see each other who haven't seen each other in forever. And obviously, as a performer, it's great because I'm able to meet and greet with a lot of people who maybe I haven't had an in-person with before. Maybe we've spoken before. Maybe they know of me or I know of them. But now we are in person and we can express things to get things done business-wise. That sort of sets up the rest of the year too.
So with that being said, heading into it, you've got the collective coming up in April, beginning of April, end of March, with Mania Week, the craziness that is Mania Week every year in wrestling. What are you looking forward to the most of heading into that wild week?
So I want
any snippets for us?
I want to give a caution first, and I've tried to find the politest way to say this, because I was the same bird who was begging to be on any Mania shows I could when I was getting started in my career. And I saw someone tweet, maybe a year ago about Mania weeks used to be about seeing all these new indie people. Now it seems like, there's established talent here. And I thought about it for a second and I was thinking, I just don't think you were watching as much indie wrestling at the time, because what this Mania week has sort of always been is who's been putting on for this year, who's been showing up and putting in the work, who's been showcasing their talents or popping out or highlighting big. It's never been the event that gets you off and you haven't had a year that's been leading up to it. And so I think a lot of people are coming into this, and I've seen a lot of graphics and I've seen a lot of people, stating their availability. And I don't want people to be heartbroken if they are not chosen to compete on one of these shows. A lot of these shows are booked heavily in advance. And I think for some people, they feel like, okay, it's make or break if I'm not a part of this. I had somebody at, one of the Big Gay Brunches recently say, like, I was just going to quit wrestling if I didn't get on one of these this year. And I was like, no, like, please don't. This is one wrestling show. Obviously, it's great visual. It's good press. It's wonderful clout to get to be featured, but also, like, just because I didn't book you doesn't mean I don't see you. Just because there's not a spot for you in this exact moment doesn't mean your time is not coming. And wrestling is a big waiting game. I think people probably thought, oh, Effie just popped out on the scene and got everything. But it's like, I'm in my 10th year of being paid to wrestle. I'm in my 13th year of being a part of my 12th year of being a part of wrestling. These things don't come right away. You don't get these moments right away. And so, not that there won't be featured talent that is on the come up, not that we won't be reaching out to try to find the new people that are on the scene, but I just don't want people to be heartbroken if they're not featured in these moments, because honestly, we're still trying to sell tickets at the end of the day too. And looking at people that have had big years, that have had a lot of clout, that have had a lot of press, you want to feature those talents as well and give them these bigger spots to say, we acknowledge how much you've done all year. Let's see how you fare in these big spotlights. And, you can look at my first year of matches with GCW too. I was put through the ringer. I was tested with everyone. It was put up or shut up. And I think that, a lot of times we see somebody come up on a good wave, and then you'll notice in these Mania weekends, there are people who really take the bull by the horns and stand out, but it's not because they haven't been tested down that line already. We're not trying to just like put someone we've never heard of into a spot just because they said they're available. And I think that's hard for a lot of people to hear, because, it does feel like you're not being included when you're not being included, but sometimes it's not your time to be included. And I don't want people's, entire trips to be based on whether or not they got all these bookings or did all this stuff and feel left out if they weren't. My Mania week's going to be nuts. I've been in talks for the match that we're going to do at the Philly Big Gay Brunch. If it happens, I think it will blow people's minds. There's been, long-standing, it's not heat, but it is. I think it's going to be the payoff to a little bit of feuding and a little bit of mindset, that I stuck to my guns on things. And I think these fellas figured out, there are things that work if you don't take yourself as seriously. And I hope that things work out. We're in negotiating talks on that right now. I think it would be a huge match. I think it would be magical for the Big Gay Brunch. But then as far as, spring break goes and these other shows that I'm excited to be a part of, I know I'm doing Stan Styles, one of his intergender bonanzas. And I have a match picked out that isn't necessarily intergender, but it's also a talent that I've gotten to be in the ring with a few times that I've never had a one-on-one with. And, filling out the rest of the week, I'm looking forward to filling the schedule as much as I can, but I'm also fine with, like, I'm pretty sure me and Manders are going to go split a WrestleCon table. And the times that we don't have to wrestle, I'm not going to be mad or looking for wrestling times. I'm going to go hang out at the table, talk and hang out with people, see friends I haven't seen in a while. The last time I didn't get to spend much time at WrestleCon, and I walked in for my one day of signing. And within 3 minutes, I saw my good friend Amy Dumas. She introduced me to Trish Stratus. And then I turn around and Ricky Morton kisses me on the lips in front of Tommy Rich and said, look, I told you I love him. I don't care. I'll be gay if I need to. And you're just going like, what a marvelous, weird thing, where I'm over here worried about whether or not I have 8 matches to do and wearing myself thin. And by the time WrestleMania hits, I was, 3 years in a row, I've dropped off Manders at the door to WrestleMania and said, have a good time. Not because I don't like WrestleMania, not because I wouldn't enjoy going, but because I'm so exhausted and I'm so beat at that point in the week that, like, he's going, George Kittle got us free tickets to go to WrestleMania. We're all going to hang out. And then he met Stone Cold. And I was like, honestly, I went and ate a pot pie. I have physically exhausted myself beyond belief. And I'm hoping this year I don't do that. I want to have moments. I want to have a lot of matches. It's going to be great. I'm going to run a big magical show. It's going to be huge in Philly, but I also want to make sure I'm protecting my energy this year and not having to rest for 2 weeks, to get back on my feet after putting everything on the line.